Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Rage video, where tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the word striking, I think, is one that isn't particularly used too much nowadays. Now, without wanting to turn this into a long-form discussion about the adaptation and the shift, the paradigm shift in language, because believe you me, I do quite like my words. Don't get me wrong, but it is always funny whenever certain words fall into the zeitgeist through. It could be through certain events. It could be through certain actions, things that shape our culture, or even just some things that inadvertently happen to it. Hawk Tour, for example. That might not mean anything, but at the same time, it was what kickstarted a nothing celebrity just because she described the act of spitting on somebody, and the name stuck ever since, much like her gods stuck to the pavement. Now, again, for those who have no interest in such things, I wouldn't be remiss if you had no idea what I was talking about. But it is true, and I heard a lot of all this for years as she grew from an idiot into an imbecile. But of late, well, I'll tell you what, let's take another example. Endgame, for example. It kick-started round about the end of 2018 following the announcement of Avengers Endgame. What was supposed to be the theatrical grand finale of the Avengers cinematic universe. Now, technically it's not, because, well, nearly 7 years down the line, they still are not quite done with it yet. Although, I would say the defeat of Thanos probably should have been about as conclusive as it's probably ever going to get. And even of late, 6-7, for whatever reason, has just become a wording that people have seen as seemingly, popular for whatever reason. Popular, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this for a moment right now. Popular is just a fancy way of describing the only reason why it's popular is because people will not stop saying it. The second people stop saying something, it doesn't become popular any longer, and it just sort of fades away. And then you get people like me come back years later and saying, was it ever really good in the first? Because good and popular are two very, very separate things. And I was like this a lot when, they started just blasting out whatever. I know we'll get to the song eventually, but I remember all the way back in about 2011 is probably the point of this. Is that there was two Rihanna songs that were playing pretty much at the same time. What's My Name and Who's That Chick? Which I think, well, first of all, What's My Name was definitely better by about maybe 2 or 2.5 and stuff like that. Who's That Chick was certainly good, maybe the first 3 or so times. But then when they started doing what they did on the radio and they blasted out way too much, that's when it really becomes tiresome and you begin to look elsewhere or even just turn the radio off. See, I think, again, time and place, stuff like that, and, well, depending on whether or not it's good or not, maybe just one way or the other. It's a very subjective sort of thing. But when it comes, in my opinion, to things like cool, and by the way, I have not heard the song Who's That Chick in 15 years, which, again, begs the question, was it ever good in the first place? Or was it just because it was new and it was associated with somebody quite famous at the time? And still is, to be fair. Rihanna is still really, really popular. But what I'm trying to get is it really that good when you think about it? Well, that's not really up for me to decide, because I think things like California King Bed is still... No, California King Bed and Russian Roulette are the two best Rihanna songs, unless I am proven otherwise. Sorry, the point I'm trying to make is that when I use the word striking to describe a song, it's the sort of thing that leaves a very, very distinctive impression from the word go. And Wolf Totem, to my knowledge, maybe the first ever metal band to come out of, I can't describe if it's Mongolia. it certainly is Mongolia. It's like northern China, like north of China, something like that. What I'm trying to get at is that it's already very distinctive because, well, how many other bands from that part of East Asia can you name that aren't just come out? Because did China have any metal bands? They must have some, but it's nothing that's ever struck my notice at any point. But I'm sure we can find some if we look deep enough. But with that being said, it's not just about having that distinction, but it's also about what they do with it. And believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never heard of Wolf Totem before, you're about to witness something actually really, really unique. And believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, Wolf Totem, the Who, as they are called, not to be described with Roger Daltrey and Keith Moon and the like. However, I think even if Keith Moon was still knocking about and he saw this, even he would probably sit up straight and put his pipe down for a second. So with that being said, let me showcase to you guys what I mean by striking. The embroidery, it looks... Just imagine Genghis Khan riding into the distance. Actually, no, maybe that's him now. And yes, if it hasn't also escaped your notice, ladies and gentlemen, again, listen, I've done many bands I've seen across my time, but this doesn't look like a band. It looks like a friggin' motorcycle gang that decided they want to become musicians. Like, you know the NWA, ladies and gentlemen? It's borderline the same thing, really. It's just, like, do these guys look like the sort... Like just take a look at this. Just... Again, these guys, they do not look like they're here to perform. These guys look like they're ready to fight. And, again, it's no point in really wearing the shades. It's the same sort of, like, monochrome filter they've got. But how much do these guys spend on this gear? It looks probably maybe even more than the bike, but the bike's got spikes on the handles. Now, I will put subtitles on, but I am fully aware that I figured that one of the line is, like the elephant, we shall march. Because they provoke a lot of imagery involving tremendous forms of wildlife in these. Actually, I'll go one further. It sounds like straight up the sort of thing you would expect out of maybe Mulan, where they have the leader of the Mongols just paving the path all the way to China. Why would you know what? Again, I've heard that the live action Mulan movie sucked, but could they have not have had a musical number for the villain? Because this screams of villains are approaching. But you know what I mean? It's intimidating, it's sharp, and of course, when they start provoking throat singing, it's the sort of thing you're never really going to forget. It sounds like bloodthirsty demons baying for war. Maybe it was to evoke the imagery of Genghis Khan. Maybe that was maybe that was completely intentional. You see, that's absolute. When I'll end this video pretty much exactly how it began, if you will, ladies and gentlemen, because when I say these guys are going to strike And that's it. There's no other way of describing it apart from they are gonna strike, because guess what? It's one of those anthems where they are baying for war. And honestly, you know what? It's the sort of thing that straight... I know fine well that I would love to see more of this. And not just the likes of... Wait a minute, the Who did a cover of Sad But True? When did that happen? I feel like, again, it's just one of the... Maybe we ought to check that out one of these days, because that sounds very, very promising. But we'll have to see for another time, eh? So, I must... And I will say, that is just... Every so often, it's just the sort of thing you like to see. Alternative, perhaps, but one that also... It invokes imagery of war, but also that... You know what? It's their take on war, literally echoing the styles of Genghis Khan, which I knew it had to be a little bit more than intentional. So, with that being said, I hope all of you guys enjoyed Wolf Totem and see exactly what I was talking about, and I'll see all of you guys again next time. Thank you.